Nobody expected this. Not the blogs. Not the streets. And definitely not the fans. When the industry started turning its back on NBA YoungBoy, people assumed everyone around him would slowly disappear too. That's how it usually goes. When the pressure gets heavy, loyalty gets light. But that's when Lil Pap did something nobody saw coming. Behind closed doors, while critics were calling YoungBoy too controversial and insiders whispered about distancing themselves, Lil Pap doubled down. Studio sessions got more intense. The circle got smaller. And according to sources close to the camp, there were real opportunities placed in front of Lil Pap. Solo deals, quiet offers, even subtle pressure to step away and protect his image. He didn't move. In fact, insiders claim there was one particular meeting where Lil Pap was told straight up, "You can shine on your own, but not if you stay tied to him." That's when everything changed. Instead of folding, he allegedly walked out and went straight back to YoungBoy's side. No hesitation. No negotiation. Fans are stunned because in today's rap game, loyalty usually has an expiration date. But this looks different. This feels personal. Is it brotherhood? Is it a strategy? Or does Lil Pap know something the public doesn't? One thing is clear, while the world watches and waits for cracks in the foundation, Lil Pap is standing 10 toes down. And that might be the real power move nobody saw coming. Because in a rap industry built on temporary alliances and quiet betrayals, what Lil Pap is doing right now feels almost unnatural. People are used to watching friendships crumble the moment pressure hits. The moment headlines turn negative. The moment lawyers get involved. But somehow, every time the spotlight intensifies around NBA YoungBoy, Lil Pap doesn't step back, he steps closer. And that's what has fans talking. Over the past few years, NBA YoungBoy has lived under one of the most intense spotlights in hip-hop. Legal troubles, social media controversies, industry politics. Every move dissected, every lyric analyzed. There were moments when blogs practically predicted isolation. They said the circle would shrink. They said collaborators would distance themselves to protect their brands. But the opposite happened in this case. Lil Pap didn't just stay, he became louder about it. Studio footage started surfacing with Pap right there. Behind the scenes, clips showed him present during late-night recording marathons. And what really caught people's attention was the body language. No hesitation. No awkward distance. It wasn't an industry-friendly association. It looked like real loyalty. And that's rare. See, in hip-hop, loyalty gets tested when money, fame, and risk collide. When an artist rises as fast as NBA YoungBoy did, pressure follows just as quickly. Labels watch closely. Executives whisper. Advisors suggest strategic distancing. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. A delayed feature. A missed call. A public silence when support is needed most. But Lil Pap didn't go silent. In fact, according to insiders close to the situation, there were conversations happening behind the scenes that fans never saw. Conversations about optics. About marketability. About separating personal loyalty from business growth. The kind of talks that make young artists rethink everything. Imagine being told, you've got potential, but the association might slow you down. For many artists, that's enough to plant doubt. That's enough to create space. But if anything, it seems to have done the opposite here. People close to the circle claim that one pivotal moment changed everything. It wasn't public. No cameras. No live streams. Just a serious sit-down where opportunities were allegedly presented to Lil Pap, solo pathways, bigger promotional pushes, individual branding moves. The type of deals that can shift a career overnight. And the condition? Quiet. Separation. Nothing messy. Nothing loud. Just gradual independence. A slow fade. But that fade never came. Instead, fans noticed something else. More unity. More visible solidarity. Subtle but intentional. Social media posts that felt deliberate. Appearances that sent a message without saying a word. That's when the speculation exploded. Was this pure loyalty? Or was it a strategy? Because here's the thing most people miss, loyalty in hip-hop can be power. When the industry expects fragmentation, unity becomes disruptive. When critics predict isolation, standing together flips the narrative. And Lil Pap standing 10 toes down might be doing exactly that. There's also a deeper layer that fans are starting to recognize. NBA YoungBoy has always emphasized authenticity. Whether people agree with him or not, his fanbase believes he moves how he feels. No filters. No heavy industry molding. That authenticity built a fiercely loyal audience. And loyalty tends to attract loyalty. Lil Pap didn't come into the picture as a random industry add-on. He grew within that environment, around that energy, around that mindset. So when the storms hit, walking away wouldn't just be a business decision, it would look personal. And in hip-hop, perception is everything. If Pap had distanced himself during peak controversy, critics would have labeled it smart. But fans? They might have labeled it betrayal. Especially within NBA YoungBoy's core audience, where loyalty is valued almost like currency. So now we're watching something rare unfold in real time. Instead of separation under pressure, there's visible reinforcement. Instead of silence, there's presence. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Some analysts believe Lil Pap's loyalty might actually be strengthening his position long-term. Because when you align yourself with someone who has one of the most dedicated fan bases in modern rap, consistency matters. NBA YoungBoy supporters don't forget who stayed and who switched sides. That memory lasts. And if YoungBoy continues to evolve, overcome obstacles, and maintain his streaming dominance, the people who stood beside him during turbulence could benefit from that narrative forever. But there's a risk too. Because standing beside someone constantly in headlines means absorbing part of that heat. It means your name gets pulled into conversations whether you asked for it or not. It means industry executives may hesitate. Sponsors might pause. Media coverage could shift. Lil Pap knew that, and still didn't move. Which raises another question. Is this bigger than music? Some insiders suggest the bond goes deeper than fans realize. Shared experiences. Shared struggles. Moments that never made it online. When loyalty is built in private hardship, public pressure doesn't shake it as easily. And if that's the case, then what we're witnessing isn't strategy at all, it's brotherhood. But even brotherhood has layers. Because in the modern rap industry, perception shapes legacy. Years from now, when people look back at this era of controversy and chaos, they'll remember who was present, who stayed visible, who stood firm. Lil Pap's name is being written into that chapter right now. And here's the twist nobody expected. Instead of slowing him down, the association might actually be amplifying him. Every time NBA YoungBoy trends, fans search. They click. They revisit collaborations. They explore the circle. Visibility expands. So what looked risky on paper might be calculated in practice. Still, the tension hasn't disappeared. The industry is watching. Fans are watching. And the next move will matter. Because loyalty is powerful, but it gets tested repeatedly. Especially when success levels change. Especially when new deals, new territories, and new pressures enter the picture. For now, though, one thing is undeniable. Lil Pap didn't flinch. While others speculated, he stayed solid. While critics predicted cracks, he reinforced the foundation. And whether this story ends in triumph, turbulence, or transformation, one fact remains clear: the loyalty is real. But the consequences? Those are still unfolding. The consequences? Those are still unfolding. Because loyalty in hip-hop isn't just emotional, it's strategic, dangerous, and sometimes life-altering. And as the pressure around NBA YoungBoy continues to evolve, so does the weight sitting on Lil Pap's shoulders. Here's what most fans don't see. When an artist operates at YoungBoy's level, dominating streaming platforms, trending without traditional promo runs, building a cult-like fanbase, the industry doesn't just watch. It calculates. Every move becomes data. Every alliance becomes a signal. And right now, Lil Pap is sending a very loud signal. He's saying, I'm not separating. I'm not adjusting for comfort. I'm here. That kind of message disrupts narratives. Because the narrative was supposed to be isolated. It was supposed to be a gradual detachment. It was supposed to be survival mode. Instead, it looks like consolidation. Sources close to the camp claim that in recent months, the circle has actually tightened, not fractured. Studio sessions have become more private. Fewer outside collaborators. More internal creation. More trust-based collaboration rather than label-pushed features. And that changes everything. Because when artists build internally during chaos, they often emerge stronger. History has shown that some of hip-hop's most dominant movements were born during periods of pressure. Isolation can turn into focus. Criticism can turn into fuel. If that's what's happening here, then Lil Pap isn't just staying loyal, he's positioning himself at the core of something potentially bigger. But let's talk about the risk again. Being closely aligned with NBA YoungBoy means inheriting headlines by proximity. Even if Pap isn't directly involved in controversy, his name can trend alongside it. That can shape perception before people even hear his music. For a rising artist, perception can open doors or quietly close them. Industry executives don't always say no publicly. Sometimes they just stop calling. Sometimes budgets shrink. Sometimes opportunities get redirected. It's subtle, strategic, and very real. So the fact that Lil Pap continues to double down suggests something deeper. Either he believes fully in the long-term vision, or he values loyalty over short-term positioning. And here's where fans are divided. Some argue that this is brotherhood, plain and simple. That in a culture where loyalty is preached in lyrics daily, Pap is simply living it out in real life. No switching sides. No calculated exit strategy. Others believe there's a bigger chessboard at play. Because think about this, NBA YoungBoy's fanbase is one of the most consistent in streaming history. Despite controversy, despite limited traditional media support, the numbers rarely collapse. That type of consistency creates leverage. If you're inside that ecosystem, trusted, visible, and present, you grow with it. So while outsiders view the loyalty as risky, insiders might view it as alignment with one of the most resilient brands in modern rap. And that's powerful. There's also an emotional layer that doesn't get discussed enough. NBA YoungBoy built much of his career around themes of isolation, distrust, and self-reliance. His music often reflects tension with the industry and skepticism toward outsiders. So when someone remains firmly in his corner during storms, it reinforces the narrative his fans already believe, that loyalty exists, but only within a chosen few. Lil Pap standing firm strengthens that mythology. And mythology matters in hip-hop. Because fans don't just follow artists anymore, they follow storylines. They invest in arcs. They defend narratives like sports teams. Loyalty stories create emotional attachment far stronger than chart positions ever could. That means Pap isn't just maintaining friendship, he's becoming part of the legend. But legends come with expectations. If this loyalty story continues, fans will expect consistency. They'll expect unity through future controversies. They'll expect visible support during career shifts. And any deviation could feel amplified. That's the double-edged sword of public loyalty. And there's another layer most people overlook. When the industry anticipates division and it doesn't happen, it forces recalibration. Executives begin rethinking assumptions. Analysts revisit projections. Media narratives shift tone. What was once labeled unstable becomes unbreakable. And perception slowly flips. We may already be witnessing that shift. Instead of stories about isolation, conversations are emerging about resilience. Instead of focusing solely on controversy, people are noticing the consistency in YoungBoy's output and the visible loyalty in his circle. Lil Pap's name is increasingly attached to that consistency. And here's the wild part. If YoungBoy eventually navigates through current challenges and enters a new era, cleaner headlines, bigger platforms, renewed industry embrace, the artists who stayed beside him during turbulence could see exponential growth. Because redemption arcs are powerful. And being present during the storm makes you part of the comeback. But redemption isn't guaranteed. That's what makes this loyalty so high stakes. Pap is betting on something intangible, belief, bond, shared vision, or maybe all three. He's accepting the volatility in exchange for authenticity. In today's climate, that's rare. Because the safer move would have been gradual independence. Separate branding. Separate sound. Controlled distance. Quiet reinvention. Instead, he chose visibility within the fire. And fans are watching closely. Every appearance. Every post. Every collaboration. Looking for cracks. Looking for shifts. Looking for signs of strain. So far, nothing obvious. If anything, unity appears more intentional than ever. Which raises one final question. What happens if this loyalty reshapes both careers? Because sometimes, standing beside someone during their most controversial era doesn't weaken you. Sometimes it forges identity. Sometimes it builds narrative equity that money can't buy. If Lil Pap continues to evolve musically while staying aligned, he could transform from loyal associate into core pillar, from supporting presence into a foundational figure. And that transition would surprise the industry even more than the loyalty itself. For now, though, we're still in the middle of the story. The pressure hasn't disappeared. The headlines haven't fully cooled. The industry hasn't fully embraced it. But the stance hasn't changed either. 10 toes down. And until something forces movement, that's where things stand. The loyalty is visible. The risks are real. The rewards are uncertain. And the next chapter? It might be the one that changes everything. Or is this calm just the silence before something nobody's ready for? Because if history has taught hip-hop anything, it's this: storms don't send warnings. They hit fast. And when they do, they expose everything. Not just contracts. Not just friendships. But character. And right now, all eyes are still locked on NBA YoungBoy and the people closest to him. Every appearance, every move, every subtle shift gets analyzed. The blogs may not say it directly, but the question floats in the background. How long can this level of loyalty survive this level of pressure? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the better question is, what if this loyalty was never fragile to begin with? Because the way Lil Pap moves doesn't look temporary. It doesn't look like someone waiting for the right exit. It looks intentional, measured. Almost like he already calculated the risks and decided they were worth it. And that's where things get interesting. A lot of fans assume loyalty is emotional, that it's about feelings, friendship, or history. But at this level, loyalty can also be strategic alignment. It can be about understanding brand synergy before the industry understands it. NBA YoungBoy's fanbase is one of the most engaged in modern rap. They stream aggressively. They defend loudly. They remember details. If you're consistently visible within that ecosystem, your name becomes familiar. And familiarity builds longevity. But let's step away from strategy for a second. Because even if there's calculation involved, there's something deeper that fans can sense: authenticity. In every clip, every behind-the-scenes moment, there's no visible strain. No forced smiles. No awkward positioning for cameras. The energy looks natural. That's hard to fake long-term. Still, the industry doesn't reward loyalty the same way fans do. Executives reward predictability, stability, clean headlines. And NBA YoungBoy's career has rarely followed a predictable script. That unpredictability is part of his appeal, but it's also part of the risk. So what happens if another major controversy erupts? What happens if pressure intensifies beyond anything seen before? That's the moment where loyalty transforms from statement to sacrifice. And sacrifices leave marks. But here's another layer nobody talks about enough: growth. Artists evolve. Mindsets shift. Maturity changes dynamics. The version of NBA YoungBoy today isn't identical to the version from years ago. Experience reshapes people. And if evolution continues in a positive direction, loyalty stops being risky and starts being visionary. Imagine 5 years from now. Stability established. Legacy cemented. Narrative rewritten. In that scenario, Lil Pap's decision to stay becomes iconic. It becomes part of the mythology. He never left when things were messy. That line alone carries weight in hip-hop culture. But if the opposite unfolds, if instability overshadows growth, critics will revisit every moment and say the signs were there. That's the tension of real-time decisions. No one has hindsight yet. And maybe that's why this story feels different. It's not about betrayal exposed or friendship broken. It's about loyalty sustained under pressure. That's rare, especially in an era where collaborations are transactional and alliances shift with streaming numbers. There's also something powerful about resisting outside influence. The rap industry thrives on separation tactics. Divide momentum, redirect attention, create narratives that shift loyalty. When someone refuses to play that game, it disrupts the usual cycle. Lil Pap hasn't publicly addressed every rumor. He hasn't jumped into debates. He hasn't tried to over-explain his position. Silence, in this case, might be his loudest statement. I'm here. That's it. And that minimalism? It's powerful. Because when someone stays without constantly announcing it, the action speaks louder than any caption could. Still, the future remains unwritten. New business deals could reshape priorities. New artistic directions could demand independence. Even personal growth could alter perspectives. Loyalty doesn't mean stagnation. It means alignment, and alignment sometimes evolves. The real test won't be one dramatic headline. It'll be time. Time reveals intentions. Time exposes cracks. Time rewards patience. Right now, time is working in their favor. The narrative hasn't collapsed. The foundation hasn't fractured. The bond appears intact. But time also introduces crossroads. At some point, Lil Pap may face a defining solo opportunity that can't be ignored. A moment where stepping slightly aside doesn't mean betrayal, it means expansion. And if that moment comes, the way it's handled will define everything. Will it look coordinated? Will it look divided? Will fans interpret it as growth or departure? Those optics matter. For now, though, the message remains consistent. Loyalty isn't being whispered. It's being lived. Through appearances. Through collaborations. Through visible presence during chaos. And maybe that's why fans are so invested. Because in a genre filled with fallout stories, this one hasn't fallen apart. Not yet. There's something compelling about watching loyalty survive pressure. It feels almost defiant. Almost rebellious. Like refusing to follow the expected script. The expected script says distance yourself when storms hit. Lil Pap tore that script up. Whether that becomes a legendary decision or a cautionary tale, only time will tell. But here's the truth nobody can deny. He made a choice. He chose to stand visible. He chose to absorb the risk. He chose alignment over isolation. And in hip-hop, choices like that echo long after the headlines fade. So maybe the calm isn't a warning sign. Maybe it's stability forming beneath the noise. Or maybe, just maybe, this loyalty isn't about proving anything to the industry at all. Maybe it's simply about staying solid in a world that expects you to switch up. And if that's the case, then the most shocking part of this entire story isn't the rumors, or the pressure, or the speculation. It's the consistency. In an era where everything changes overnight, one thing hasn't. Lil Pap is still there, standing 10 toes down. And until that changes, the narrative stays powerful. The storm may return. The pressure may rise. But for now, the loyalty holds. Now I want to hear from you. After everything we just broke down, after the pressure, the rumors, the industry whispers, and the non-stop headlines surrounding NBA YoungBoy, one question remains: is Lil Pap making the smartest move of his career or the riskiest? Do you respect loyalty? Or do you think at some point an artist has to step out and build completely on their own? Drop your honest opinion in the comments right now. Don't just say, W loyalty, explain why. I'm reading the real breakdowns. And if you believe loyalty still matters in hip-hop, hit that like button. Let's see how many people still stand on principle over politics. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because if anything changes in this situation, if new drama drops, if alliances shift, or if we see a major move from either side, you already know we're covering it first. This story isn't over. Not even close. We're watching it unfold in real time. And trust me, the next chapter could flip everything. So tap in, stay locked, and don't miss what happens next.